Right.
Welcome, everyone. This is Fit as a Fiddle Plus with Kathy Benner, that's me, and Rita Brewer. Rita is in the car, so if you're watching, you will see that there's a nice, pretty green R that shows up instead of her beautiful face because she is on audio only as she's driving. And then we have Kamilah Williams with us tonight, and so I want to tell you a little bit about her. She is a physician with a passion for holistic health. She is board certified in family medicine, obesity medicine, and lifestyle medicine. And as she was challenged by weight loss resistance and personal health problems, she was struck by how many others had similar struggles. Oh boy, can I ever relate to that, Kamilah? Absolutely. By adopting a low-carb lifestyle with intermittent fasting, she improved her health and ultimately maintained her weight loss by embracing various wellness practices. So I cannot wait to hear more from her. She is the creator and host of the Single Well podcast and has a passion for helping single moms and women optimize their health and optimize their lives. Now, what we're about as Fit as a Fiddle Plus is our definition is to be in fantastic health. Nowadays, fit means healthy. However, in the past, fit meant fitting, as in something that is well suited for a particular purpose. So we want you all to be fit as a Fiddle Plus in the 4 domains of health, in the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. So join us every month as we explore everything health and wellness. So are you ready to go to the next level? We want you to be well suited for all of your endeavors. And we meet the 4th Monday of every month at 6 o'clock right here on Zoom. And then this is recorded and it goes out on Vimeo, it goes out on YouTube, and it also goes out as a podcast on Audio Boom. And then it is picked up by, I think, 8 other podcast platforms as well. So welcome, Kamilah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here. I can't wait to hear all about what you do. Yes, I love it. I love it. Tell us a little bit about your backstory. I mean, what did you do before you did this? What was your background, your backstory, so to speak?
So, you mean my career essentially?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what even brought you to, holistic
To
medicine
holistic health.
and
Oh yeah, that was a very personal journey. Really, I was in family medicine, which is where my first board certification was, and where I spent the majority of my career in that field. And was finding the same struggles I had, my patients had. As doctors do, you kind of ignore things. You're like, it's probably nothing. And then you start to notice, more and more little things, and they just kind of start to add up. And so for me, those things included problems with just body pain, different skin conditions, problems with like plantar fasciitis, or like the bottoms of my feet would hurt. And it turns out most of the things, acid reflux, most of the things I was dealing with pertain to inflammation, or where the body's basically telling you something is wrong. And so I just thought, I probably, did too much here or there, or I'm just tired. I was tired a lot. I had to live on coffee. So it was just a lot of things going on. But I really started to notice when my son is 8 now. When after I had him about a year, well, actually the same year I had him, I was diagnosed with prediabetes. And then I had to go through the DPP program, diabetes prevention program. And, got a little better from there, but just couldn't get the weight off. I had been through a lot with weight over the years, just ups and downs. I actually had lost weight during my pregnancy. But then, during the pregnancy, I went through a divorce, and then eventually we, separation, and we went through a divorce after that. So there was a lot of stress there at the time. And so after that, when my son was about 1, I was like, I need to do something different, but I want to find a way to do it simply. There has to be a way to do this without restricting, without feeling like I can't have anything that I like and things like that. And so I actually went and bought the book Nutrition for Dummies, which is, people just can't believe that, they're like, but you're a doctor. I'm like, they teach us zero, like less than zero about nutrition. So I just didn't know anything about it. I'm like, do I need certain vitamins? Do I need, all they taught us was how to, fix the problems that resulted from, these kind of things. So I did that. It didn't help me. It was just a bunch of random facts. And I said, I just need something that's going to be more, helpful. And I happened to run across one of my physician groups on Facebook. It's a big group of physician moms. I mean, there's probably, I forget how many, like 5 figures, like tens of thousands of us on there. And they were all talking about the book, The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. And they were, just raving about it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'll read it and see. And I mean, I started reading it. I probably read it in straight through in like 2 days and just was completely changed from that. I was like, this is something I can do. I wasn't completely sold on the fasting thing. That was still odd to me, to just not eat. It seemed way too simple. But what I found was that with a small child, I was spending a lot of time finding food. I was spending time, he had his baby food and stuff like that, but I was looking for, oh, I have to have breakfast and I have to have lunch and I have to have dinner. And I spent a big part of my day finding food and snacks. And the first thing I did was cut out breakfast. And I was just shocked that I felt good and how much it freed up my time in the morning. I'm getting a toddler ready. I'm trying to get myself ready. I had to go into the office at the time. So there was just a lot of stuff going on. And I was like, this is actually a time saver, and I'm not hungry like I thought I would be. So once I started doing that, I started fasting. So I got into fasting first. And then he talks a little bit about cutting back on refined and processed carbs in his book. When you start to go down that rabbit hole, you find the keto space. And happened upon that, started looking into a lot of people that were writing and speaking on that. Dr. Kim Berry was somebody that I came across, and I just started to just study it. I just started to look into, okay, fasting, how can I make this more intentional? That was like my word around, became my favorite word around the time of the pandemic. It was like, how can I be very intentional here? And this was actually years before that, but so I started to say, okay, I'm eating less or less often. How can I optimize my nutrition? And that was how I did it. I just cut way back on carbs, started to really understand, what would make me feel better. And I found that doing that very simply, it wasn't really restrictive. It was like, I still allowed myself some things, but I just, didn't want as much food. I wasn't as hungry. And I found that I just started to lose weight. I started to feel a lot better. And you don't notice at first, but over time, I started to notice a lot of these ailments were going away. I didn't have the reflux anymore. I didn't have the skin condition that I always thought was some type of infection or issue had just kind of resolved. And I noticed I only got it when I ate sugar. Like, imagine that. I started to notice that my sinuses got better. I didn't have a lot of sinus issues. My blood pressure had gone up some. Before that, it started to come down. My A1C for diabetes, prediabetes, had come down to normal and stayed, and has continued to stay in normal range since then. And that was about 5 years ago. Yeah, about 5 years ago. Probably more like 6 years ago now. But anyway, a lot of things got better and just improved. And I just kind of stuck to that really up until present day. I've added a little bit more flexibility into it. I am in a season of kind of maintenance, or trying to maintain where I am and not, have to like diet, so to speak, which, we know that keto isn't necessarily a diet, but just really trying to make it something I can stick with and do consistently, that fits my lifestyle. So that's kind of where I am. I'm kind of more of in the low carb space now, and just kind of maintaining that. But what I found in that was that I saw the solution to my own problems, but also the problems of the people I was treating. And that was the more important part. I was like, this makes sense. Now I understand why so many people have high liver tests, which is the sign of fatty liver disease, and why so many people, the same people, have problems with their triglycerides, and the same people have problems with blood pressure, and they're all telling me they're gaining weight. And then I would see people that did lose weight, but I was increasing their medicines, which didn't make sense because we had blamed everything on weight. And they would lose weight, and I'm like, oh, I need to go up on your blood pressure medicine. So there was something we were missing, and that was the missing piece, was that insulin resistance, which is, kind of the core of what Dr. Fung talks about. So that was kind of how I ended up in the holistic world, because I really was kind of frustrated on both sides, in practice and in my personal life.
So tell us, what does a day look like for you, as far as, do you have a period of time that you're fasting every day? I mean, you know, we see a lot of articles and a lot of folks talk about this
Mhm.
intermittent fasting. Is that part of what you're talking about?
Yeah, that was what I did. I did it. I was a lot better at it back then. You know, you kind of go in and out of it. But when I do it, I try to do it more intuitively. I find that when I schedule it or I'm really rigid with it, you know, like, okay, I'm going to eat from this time to this time, or I'm going to, you know, fast from this time to this time. It just doesn't work as well as when I just on the weekend get busy with stuff and don't eat until 3 p.m., you know, where I'm not forcing myself to do that. I just don't, I'm not hungry, or I might have a coffee in the morning and then I don't want anything else. So I find for me, the intuitive way works a lot better. Really, it teaches you to listen to your body. And what fasting does is helps to re-regulate those hormone signals, because we just don't need to eat constantly. You know, some people have special conditions where they have to eat a little bit more often if they've had bariatric surgery, things like that. But you know, in most cases, we can kind of, you know, combine those meals into so many hours a day, and your body will really thank you for it. It'll start to re-regulate those hormones. The body now knows when we're eating and when we're fasting, and that's really the distinction you need to make. A lot of times we're constantly eating, and people say, well, I don't eat all day. I really don't eat until 3 p.m., like I just said, but they're having coffee drinks, or they're having juice, or they're having soda, or they're having something else that they're not thinking of as telling their body that it's taking in, you know, nutrients. They're not always nutritious, but you know, nutrients. And that's where fasting comes in, when you're not taking in anything substantial. So your body's like, okay, now right now we're fasting, and then later we'll feast and we'll eat and we'll enjoy it, and then we'll go back to fasting. So for me, that comes intuitively.
Okay, so when you say intuitively, what does a day look like for you? When
Hmm.
is it that you
Hmm.
normally start to feel hungry? Just your body telling you it's
Yeah.
time to eat.
Yeah, it has changed, you know, since I've liberalized my carbohydrate intake, which is more so adding in more fruit and things like that. You know, I find that I'm more hungry. I'm kind of, you know, kind of experimenting. I wear a CGM and kind of want to see what my body can do, and how it affects me. And so what I find is that now I have retrained myself to be more hungry in the morning. Like I wake up, I do my workout, and then I do like a pretty much a fasted workout, and then I'll eat after that. And I've learned to understand that, like, when my body's asking for food, then that's not a bad thing. It's like, I've done this workout, it needs some more fuel, that's fine, you know. So I do that sometimes. There's other times where I may not get hungry until noon or after, or it just may not fit in my schedule to eat, which is really how we were designed, that food shouldn't be an urgency, you know. It shouldn't always, sometimes it is, but it shouldn't always be this urgent thing where I have to eat right now. That usually means there's something off with your metabolism. But yeah, I find that right now my rhythm is eating earlier in the morning, sometime in the middle of the day, and sometimes now I'll get like a third meal in. And some of that has to do with me, I feel like, with me sitting all day and stuff like that. So I'm trying to work on that as we speak.
Very interesting. So when you first started though with the intermittent fasting, did you try to put yourself on a schedule for our listeners? Is that
Hmm.
something they should research and try to put themselves on a
Hmm.
schedule, or until they
Hmm.
do start to feel that their body is telling them it's time to eat? I know if I don't pay any attention to the clock at all, it seems like I get hungry at 11 and at 3.
Yeah.
Well, that's just totally weird times because, you know, I go to a networking luncheon, and of course it includes lunch at noon or
Yep.
1. And
Yep.
then we go out with friends and dinner is at 6 or 7.
Hmm.
And I just find it very difficult to stick to any kind of a fasting regimen for that
Hmm.
reason, because
Hmm.
if I am totally just honest with listening to my body, I get hungry about 11,
Hmm.
and then I get hungry again about 3, and then I feel okay. I don't feel
Hmm.
like I have, but then everybody's like, have some pizza. We're going out.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And I always struggle with those
Yeah.
dinner times because you know, we're retired, and so
Hmm.
we're, you know, we're
Okay.
pretty much into a social environment, and
Hmm.
everybody, it seems like, I don't know if it's like this in all the countries, but in America, social always
Everything's
combines
food.
eating.
Hmm. Hmm.
How does one handle that?
Yeah, I think, you know, something that I love that Dr. Fung says in the book is not to be too rigid with it, is taking into account your personal schedule. He's like, some people do, you know, like to have dinner with their kids or their family, and that maybe at like, you know, 6 or 7, and you maybe, you know, he's like, if you set your fasting window to end at, or your feasting window to end at 5, and your family eats dinner at 6, there's things you can do, you know, you can sip on broth or do something else, but he's like, make it work, you know, make it fit into your lifestyle. So that's the most important thing, that it fits your lifestyle. The other thing is, I think, the training aspect. When you're kind of lost in the weeds with food, you know, like you said, our society's very food focused. Rewards are food, prizes are food, nice gestures are food, and then we socialize with food. So, you know, most of us that, you know, have worked in office environments, I don't now, you know, you're surrounded by food all the time. When I was in the office, everybody was starting to talk about lunch at 8 a.m. So you're hearing that, you know, let's order this for lunch. I'm like, it is 8:15. We're not eating lunch until noon. But then when they bring food, our bodies are conditioned to react to that. You know, you start salivating, you get hungry just because you smell food, and it gives those cues. So it's hard to be too super rigid with it. But I think in the beginning, if you struggle with just kind of grazing all day or eating throughout the day, you have to do a little bit of that. Maybe saying, okay, what is my body telling me right now? It's going to be hard in the beginning because your signals are off. But just starting to create some regimen that works for you, whether that's eating first thing in the morning and then stopping at a certain time, that might be helpful. For me, I jumped right in, but I was kind of doing both, and I was doing intermittent fasting and low carb keto. So it's like when you start with a lower carb intake, you kind of naturally start to fast after a while. So a lot of people say that's the way to start, but I actually started the opposite way, and that was fine for me. So I think something else that I do when I'm trying to, if I haven't been fasting and I'm trying to get back into it, is set a wide window, like a 12-hour window, rather than starting out with like a 3 or 4 hour window, like you hear people do OMAD and 1 meal a day. I just set it really wide. So I say, okay, I'm going to start at 9, you know, I'll have my meals like, you know, when I'm hungry, things like that. And then I will stop eating by this time. And then that way it gives you a hard cutoff. And there's fasting apps and things that can help you with that. So I think you really only need, some people always need those times, but I think you really only need them in the beginning, when you really have to say, okay, I'm going to give myself these parameters, because a lot of times we're just eating to eat. If we're honest, we're not really that hungry. We're not really needing food. We just want something. And so when you start to set those parameters, it becomes easier. Like, okay, it becomes a habit. Like, okay, instead of having food, I'm kind of wanting something. It's 9 p.m. going to have a cup of tea, or I'm going to have something else. And then that changes the game.
Yeah, I love that. I just wanted to add too, you know, Kathy, I know sometimes when we're on our health journey, we got to be the healthy deviant, you know, and not always follow the crowd, and be okay with that. Like, for example, like if you're had your main meal at 3 and now your friends want to go out to dinner at 6 and you're not really hungry, you know, don't feel guilty about just like maybe just ordering an appetizer or maybe just a little side dish. To be like, no, I'm good. And really, I'm fine. You guys go ahead. And be okay with that, because I know I do that a lot too, because I realized when I started this lifestyle, same as Dr. Mila's doing, I just can't eat big portions. So like, I mean, I'll go out to dinner and I can never eat the full plate. So I just expect that I'm only going to eat half, and I take the rest home, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't put that pressure on myself anymore. And I don't let anybody else influence me. And then I also wanted to add too about when you're like starting to fast. I think a really simple way to do it is like, for example, if you're used to eating your breakfast at 8 and your last meal by 8 p.m. So then that's a 12-hour window. So you're 12 hours eating and 12 hours fasting, you know, from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So just start by pushing it back like 1 hour. If you're used to eating at 8, then switch it to 9 a.m. And then maybe make that dinner meal stop at 7 p.m. So you just gradually narrow that window a little bit more, and, you know, work yourself down to maybe only an 8-hour eating window instead of the 12, and just do it gradually, and, you know, whatever feels good to your body. So.
Yep, I like that, and I've been doing that as well at restaurants. Sometimes I'll just get a cup of soup or something, and everybody's like, "Is that all you're gonna get?" You know, they try to go, "Here, have a bite of this," and I'm like, "Stop, stop."
Really, okay. I'm okay.
Yeah. And so it is kind of hard, but I find that a lot of times if you just don't make a big deal out of it and people really don't pay too much attention to what you ordered or what you're eating, they all just do their own thing and everybody's talking and having a good time and nobody even pays attention as to whether
Right.
you ate all your meal or not. And so I'm learning. I'm getting there. Now, how about, and I want to talk a little bit about supplements. When you talk about being insulin resistant, is there some options for some folks that are struggling with that?
Struggling with
Like
the
insulin resistive
resistance?
and
There are, I usually try not to give that advice. It's not, not necessarily medical advice, but definitely not medical advice. But I know that some people do use berberine, which is a similar, kind of the derivative of metformin or glucophage that people talk about. Some people use that. So some people can do that to help with insulin resistance, but you always want to talk to your doctor, your primary care provider about that, because there can be effects of it and you just have to be careful with your body. That's probably, I don't do a lot of supplement, education, but that's probably the one that I've seen the most used for insulin resistance. But honestly, insulin resistance is really a disorder of the environment. Changing your environment is really key, and it's not just what you eat, it's how you move, so a lot of us are conditioned towards cardio, doing a lot of cycling, or and I say this with a Peloton behind my head, but cycling and things like that. But I try to balance it with weight training, because that's how your body can become less insulin resistant. You're using more of that glucose that's like hanging around, things like that. So I think of it as more of, an overall change, and not just, okay, I'm going to take this supplement. Because the thing with supplements is sometimes you can get too involved with them and you start to think, okay, I'm going to take this supplement for this problem and just move on. But really, you need to be making those other changes as well.
So lifestyle changes as well.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, well, and talk about the difference in the weight training versus cardio, because again, I have a girlfriend and she says, I can't get this weight off. And so she walks 2 miles a day, and now she's up to walking, 10 miles a day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to walk 10 miles a day, because that takes a minute. So and so, I'm not sure, when I'm having a conversation with her, I'm not sure if she's has the total correct approach.
Yeah, we've been taught to, just kind of exercise, eat less, move more. That's really what it is. And when you have insulin resistance, which a lot of people do, your body is already trying to force you to eat more and move less, because there's a mismatch in the energy balance. So the body's not sensing the energy that's there from the fat store. So insulin's a growth and storage hormone. It helps the body to store things. So that's where we get the weight gain and start to hold on to things that way. That weight that's there, a lot of people, it's around the midsection, which is also associated with stress and lack of sleep and things like that. It leads, to this kind of just like almost like a cortisol storm. Your body is just very stressed overall. And it's just a cycle, where you just stay there. And what happens is then the body's trying to get you to eat more and move less. So it's fighting you in a way. And then we just keep eating less and moving more. So you just keep, and the body's like, nope, that's not what I want to do. And it's a very simplified version of it. But essentially what happens with some people, now some people do really well with cardio, and it depends on the person. But for some people, the cardio actually starts to become more of a stressor, because now you're putting out all this energy that and we think of it, when you think of it simply, it's like, oh, well, I'm moving more, so my body should just automatically burn fat. But it may not, because it feels like it has to hold on to it. It's like, well, what if we have a famine? I've got to use this store, so I'm not going to use them now, and so it's just a mismatch when you have those underlying metabolic issues. And so essentially, it's can be especially an issue for people in stages of like hormonal change, like perimenopause. So a lot of times as we age, we do need more muscle mass, for simple things, getting out of a chair, going up and down the stairs, carrying laundry, like those kind of things. And something I saw, as I was in practice for so long, I started to notice that as people age, they have a hard time getting out of a chair. It's one of the ways we assess their abilities. We watch them getting in and out of a chair. How fast can they do that? But they just lose those big, powerful muscles because they just don't use them. And that can lead to a lot of issues. And so there's, definitely differences between cardio and weight training. The key thing is when, like I was saying earlier, when you're doing more weight training, and you don't have to lift real heavy or do any of that, but it's just getting those muscles moving, lifting some weights. We tell people sometimes to just use cans out of the pantry, but just getting your body used to using those muscles, and the burning of that, the body's like burning through that glucose will last longer, throughout the day. Whereas the body has to actually release glucose sometimes to fuel a cardio workout, which is physiologic and isn't a problem necessarily, but it's not something that's always going to be the answer. So my solution to that has been, I'm in my 40s now. So my solution to that has been doing a balance of it. One day I do cardio, which is my cycling, just because I love it. And then the other days I do strength training, which I also love now. And interestingly, the biggest benefit of exercise, which most people don't realize, is really the mental aspect, like that emotional, mental release. A lot of people feel better when they exercise just overall. And so a lot of times we discount that in favor of just working ourselves to death in the gym. And I can do that easily. That's easier for me than food. Changing what I eat exercise is way easier, but it just it's never helped anything. When I was at my heaviest, I was doing a lot of cardio. I was training for a half marathon. I did a 50-mile bike ride in a event called Pelotonia here in Ohio. And so, it was just, I was active, but my body wasn't releasing anything. And I think what was happening was that kind of overload of cortisol and stress and all those kind of things. So very, very important to distinguish the two.
Well, this is great information. Rita, do you have some questions? There she is. Yeah, Rita, you are on mute.
Sorry, I just sat down. So yeah, let me think for a second. Yeah, so Dr. Mila and I met on Clubhouse, and it was so cool to meet her, and because she's so smart, and we have the just a like-mindedness as far as practitioners, because there's so many of us that don't know this type of stuff. And I love Dr. Jason Fung too. I read his diabetes code, obesity code. So that's really been awesome. So yeah, and if anybody here listening is on Clubhouse too, there's the great group that we found each other on is called Keto for the Souls. It was a great keto community. And you don't have to be strict keto to get on there and learn some things, because there's a lot of really smart people and great health coaches on there just offering their free time and information there. So I encourage people to check that out as well. But Dr. Mila, you're doing telehealth now, right? It's all metabolic health. Now you said you work and you cover multiple different states around the country, right? So where are you seeing patients? And is it one company that you work for?
Yeah, it's one company. I won't name them here. It's kind of a
okay
a thing. But yeah, I work in metabolic health. It's a pretty big thing. I prescribe the GLP-1 medications, which have been a game changer in medicine. And it's interesting. It's like when I first entered this stage of things in my life, this holistic stage, I didn't think that was something I would want to do. I didn't do weight loss medicines for my patients, but I'm finding that there are people that really do need that extra boost. They need something to help them get there, and some people can do it with lifestyle and be great. And then some people need the extra help due to various factors. And it's just been very rewarding to do that and be in that space. And it just kind of happened that, I started that position when I was still, I had my family practice certification, and I kind of made a leap to this position. And then I got certified in obesity medicine, and then just recently lifestyle medicine, to get the full gamut of what's out there medically. A lot of them are pretty new specialties because medicine doesn't acknowledge these things. They do now, but to an extent. So yeah, getting to work in telehealth, getting to work from home has not only been great for my career, but it's also been great for my own wellness. Being at home, I have an 8-year-old, so being home with him, being able to go get him from school and do the car line and all that stuff has been just amazing because it allows me that flexibility. So it's one of those parts where you're like your career intersects with your wellness, and it's something I didn't think about before, but it's very, very, very important to acknowledge those things too. But yeah, I do 100% telehealth now.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear what you, being you're recently certified in lifestyle medicine, because I got certified in lifestyle medicine as well in 2018.
Okay.
And as you know, they are a very plant-based community.
Yes.
And this was before I discovered, no, I did do keto before that, but
Okay.
yeah, but I wasn't healing all my inflammation. Keto for me was great to lose the weight, but I was struggling with rheumatism that wasn't full blown yet, but I was trying to get my inflammation down. And after studying lifestyle medicine, it's all plant-based. I said, okay, well, there's so much research. This is what I need to do to get my inflammation down, to help my joints and everything. And it didn't work for me. I stayed inflamed. I did not get any better at all. And I was very weak, and I felt like I was losing my lean muscle mass. And so there's the whole plant-based community thing,
Yeah.
I have a big controversy there.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I decided to do it. It came about because they have a program for, they call it HEAL. And, of course, right now my brain is escaping me and I can't remember what it stands for, but basically it has to do with health equity. And it was about helping other communities and bringing providers and practitioners in that were out in the community to get them certified so that we could get the word out. And the underlying the root premise of it is what we've been talking about, just improving your health through lifestyle. So that was what interested me about it. I'm also a lifelong learner, so I'm constantly, wanting to learn new things, but I was able to get the scholarship they offered for the health equity. I guess it was a campaign. And the reason I wanted to do it, because a lot of people do ask me that, like, well, you're pretty, you're a meat eater, like, what is that like? And I still am a staunch meat eater, but I think it was more so being able to appeal to the masses, both in the work that I do every day, but also in the community, having people, when they hear keto, they hear low carb, they see me eating red meat. They kind of, cringe a little bit. And especially in the Black community, a lot of people don't realize that is what we have decided is healthy. In general. And there is a lot of controversy about that. There's a lot of controversy about that. Now, I too don't do well with just a simple plant-based diet. I, did an experiment and ate like mostly plant-based for a few days. And I wear a CGM and my blood sugar was very high the whole time. And I was like, see, it will go up, of course, because you're eating more carbs or glucose or what have you. But it was just interesting and I didn't feel great. So I had the same type of reaction you did. And it was hard for me because it was like, okay, so here I am getting certified. Like, what is it that, I want to do with this? And it really is that idea of being able to have an intelligent conversation with people that are on that side of things, that are like, this is what I want to do. I think it's important for everyone, but especially for my community, for me to be able to bridge that gap. Because if I'm just like, well, I don't know anything about that, I don't eat that way, then people are kind of turned off, or they're just like, well, yeah, you can do that, but that's not healthy to eat, eat that way. They're just kind of closed off. Whereas I can have a conversation because now I know quite a bit about it. And I feel like I can share with them in a way that maybe pull them to the middle. That's something Dr. Berry talks about a lot. He's like, we shouldn't demonize, the other side, so to speak. And no matter where you land on that spectrum, we all need to be pulled kind of to the middle, where we're just eating better and we're not eating processed food. Because the issue is a lot of the plant-based stuff, just is processed food. It's just not really truly plant-based. I actually heard there's a comedian that I love that's vegan vegetarian, and he was talking about, he went to a party and and he was saying that, they had vegan and vegetarian options, but all they had was fruits and vegetables. And I'm like, well, that's what you're supposed to eat when you're eating
Right.
that way. If you're
Right.
eating a natural, whole food, vegan, vegetarian lifestyle, which is what I would condone if I was, if I was going to do that or tell someone to do that, that's what I would tell them to do, real food.
Right.
But he was very put off by that. And I'm like, this is the issue with that, because
Right.
I think that just by eating what is labeled vegan, which includes Oreo cookies,
Right.
that they will be healthy. And it's just,
Right.
it's unfortunate because it's kind of been, I think it's been taken over.
Right.
And the underlying idea of it is lost, I
Right.
think a little bit. So, yeah. And there are people it works for, but I
Yeah.
find that, like you said, for me, it doesn't work so well.
Yeah, there's so many fake meats out there that are just chemistry projects. Really, it's not real
Exactly.
food. It's
Exactly.
Franken food.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, that's what we all have in common is we just have to eat real food, not the fake garbage,
Mhm.
and just real food that comes from nature. So we all agree on that. But
Mhm.
there is a big meat debate still.
But,
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
the whole food source is such an issue because even our wheat is contaminated with,
Mhm.
pesticides and,
Mhm.
how do you find healthy food? That's the issue. And again, and it's hard to even just go to the grocery store and buy healthy food.
Mhm.
So what is the answer for some of our listeners there when they're trying to eat better? I'm surprised we're as healthy as we are with our food
Right.
source, quite frankly, but that's
Yeah,
just
me
my opinion.
too. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I don't know if this is on this platform, but I'm a Christian, and I believe that God is who is keeping us healthy, because the stuff we take in, the stuff I took in, I said my son and me and my son were having breakfast one day, and I talked to him frankly about the types of things I used to eat, and because I've taught him differently, he was just appalled,
Mhm.
and I was just thinking about how grateful I was that I had never gotten really sick, because I'd seen people eating the same way and get really, really sick. So the main thing for me was reading labels. Again, that intentionality factor. So instead of just grabbing stuff and being like, oh, let me just eat whatever, there's an intentionality behind what I buy, what I eat. When I get meat, I do try it. I know not everybody can afford it, but I do try to get well-sourced meat. I'm friendly with my local butcher here, and make sure I get foods that are, processed, because meats have to be processed to an extent to be prepared for us to get them and cook them the way that we want, so that they're processing it in their shop and not through some big, company, or buying it wholesale or that kind of thing. So that's important to me. I've become really interested in vegetable oils. I think that's a big problem for a lot of people. Every restaurant you go to, pretty much even the healthy places, believe that things like vegetable oil and in large amounts is better for you than animal fat, and there's a lot of controversy with that. But for me personally, I have had tangible symptoms when I eat a lot of that stuff, so I know for me it doesn't work, and it's something that people like Dr. Kate Shanahan is adamant about, that we not consume those things. And I've seen it in my own body. When I have them, I can tell almost immediately. And there's an odor to them and things like that. And there's things you notice as you get more into it. But I tell people it takes time, to read labels and, understand that, I'm just like everybody else. If I go to the store, I just want to get in and out. And it's hard to stand there and look at everything you buy, especially when you're starting out. But like I told my mom, I took my mom to the store one time, and it was actually kind of heartbreaking, because you see your mom as this figure of like, they know everything, and I'm in my 40s now, but I took her to the store, and, I talk all the time about nutrition, probably ad nauseum, but, she picked up a pack of loaf of bread, and I said, Mom, I'm not trying to bug you. I just want you to read the label, because it's just reading one label, and it made a difference. Now, when she buys juice or something, she's like, there's a lot of sugar in there, like just that little bit of just
Mhm.
seeing it. You see it once and you start to pay attention. So now, even though she still may have the juice, she'll drink half of it or water it down or do, that's going to make a big difference long term. So I think it's taking it slow, but reading labels is key. And for me, that often makes or breaks whether I buy something or not. If I see one of those oils, I know that my body doesn't tolerate it, I probably won't buy it. I don't buy things with carrageenan in it. There's a whole lot of issues with that. Somebody that I follow is the Food Babe. She has a lot of the label stuff on her website and her Instagram.
Yeah.
Very informative about some of these things. And a lot of them are banned in other places. It's not us being crazy and just not wanting to eat the red dye and stuff. They really are problematic. And so it's not that I eat perfectly. It's not that I never eat anything with those things in them, but I'm very mindful of that. And I'm mindful of, okay, well, yesterday I had this food with this in it, so I'm not going to have that today. And it's just that simple. It's really an intentional lifestyle. We just do it gradually. You're not going to be perfect. We've all been, I've been in this for 7 years, I think now, 5, would I say 6 years, something like that. And I still buy things and don't look carefully and get it home. And I'm like, oh, there's other things in there. Even simple things like, I use heavy cream because I'm more on the low carb side of things, but some of them have additives. And so when you go to a coffee shop, I get my Americano with heavy cream. There's still probably some carrageenan in that. And I have to accept that. But I know what I'm putting in my body rather than not knowing and being unhealthy. So I just tell people to take it slow, just start reading labels. Anything that you can't take those ingredients and make yourself, probably don't want to be consuming a lot of that. And that's the easiest way to start.
Yeah.
I find that not only, what store you shop at, but also what state you're in makes a difference. When Mark and I go to Florida, we have a condo down there, and when we go to Florida, we eat better when we're in Florida than we do here. There are more fruit stands, fruits and vegetable stands. There's more fresh that we can buy fresh. And even when we go to the restaurants, the salads are fresher there generally than they are in Ohio.
Yeah. Seafood on the coast is unmatched. Like
so
anywhere on the coast, it's just
so it's just better food. And so it's so hard, to always eat better, depending on what's available. And sometimes availability is the problem.
Yeah, I find that hard for me too. When I'm in just 2.5 hours northeast of where I am now, I'm in Columbus, and my family lives up that way. And when I'm there, it is very hard to find foods that fit in my little criteria. I find that I have to just kind of abandon it sometimes if I want to eat, because it's just not, and you think like, oh, this is a city that has stores and has everything, but they just don't have the same availability of things like I do here in a bigger city that has more options. So it's very interesting.
I love this conversation. So many folks that are listening in and it's going to listen to the replay. It seems like everyone is struggling, especially in America, more than, again, other countries. So I tend to think, and I don't know how accurate this is, that not only is food sources different from state to state, but they're certainly different from country to country. And in other countries, the food, they do eat more whole foods and more fresh foods. And there's even some of the larger cities where they don't do grocery shopping like we do, where you go and buy groceries, for the week or for the 2 weeks. And now with the big box stores or the big stores like Costco and Sam's Club, where people are buying for the month, and they're buying all this processed stuff so that it keeps longer. And then when you go into a city like New York, where you would think that would be terrible to try to eat, well in New York, but there is a fruit and vegetable stand on every corner. And there's a deli with fresh food on every corner. And folks there live in a flat and they go downstairs and they buy 2 meals worth. They don't buy a week's worth or 2 weeks worth or a month's worth like we do here. They don't have those huge shopping sprees like we do and try to buy it all at once. And so I think sometimes it's just changing how we live and how we bring food into the house. And so I'm actually starting to enjoy shopping for less more often,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. So I'm shopping for less, but I'm shopping more often. So
Yeah.
speak to that on some of our listeners on how do they find the best foods?
For me, I learned that mostly through the pandemic. I had changed my lifestyle in 2017. Now I'm remembering. I'm like, it's been a long day. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it was 2017. My son was 3, and he was in that picky stage where certain foods he may eat, maybe not. But he became a foodie in the pandemic, and it was because we went we didn't have a lot of options because of the pandemic. So normally I have these farms, I go to the farmers market every weekend, even in the winter. I like sought out all these different things to get better quality foods. But the butcher was open and had their meats, like they always do. And you couldn't order groceries, like everything was just crazy. So, and I was still working in person. And so I had to go to work and like don all this stuff because it was, the pandemic. So I couldn't get far. So my best friends are teachers and they were home. And so I started to realize that if I streamlined my shopping to the butcher and the farmers who were all like, hey, we still need business. Like we still got this stuff we've got to sell. I was like, you know what? If I just get meat and veg and just get it from them, we have food. So we would buy, a few days, a week's worth, freeze some, whatever we had to do. And my son started to experiment with so many different fruits and vegetables and those kinds of things that he's just a full out foodie now. He'll eat squid, he'll eat, octopus, he'll eat sardine, like he just eats whatever. And he likes to get things that are odd looking or odd tasting and different because we did that, because we didn't have a lot of choice. And it was like, it wasn't like a food scarcity thing. It was just like, okay, well, if we try to go to the store, it's like this big ordeal. There was a line at Costco. It was the whole thing. And when I started doing that, that's pretty much what I do now. I make sure I have meat frozen. Sometimes I get the meat from like a delivery service, but I always go by the butcher too and get a couple cuts. I have stuff in the freezer. I usually have vegetables and fruits for him. And, I eat vegetables too, but just not as much as I once did. And that's what we do. We just kind of make our meals based on that. And I think it's just keeping it simple is really the key. Find a source that you like. If you have to eat, some people can eat the same thing every day for the whole month. If you're that person, do it. It just simplifies it so much. And for us, it's not so much meal planning as it is, I've made it like an activity we do together. We weren't able to do it this weekend, so we've got to figure it out. But we get together and I let him pick stuff on the menu, which helps when you have kids. Hey, is there something you want to eat this week? Because he'll eat it all. If I get what he's asking for, he'll eat it all. And he's eating pretty much what I eat. So we get stuff that we both can eat. We make it together, and then we have enough for the week in there. So now he's gotten, which is sad to me, he's tall enough to reach the microwave and the air fryer and all that. So he can heat up his food, which he prefers because he doesn't like me to have to wait for me to get up and do it. And that way, when he comes home from school or it's time for dinner, if I'm like on a call or doing something for work, he can just go in there and fix his meal. But it's a healthy whole food, already prepared thing that I don't have to worry about what it is. It's already in there. And that's what's made it simple for us, but just simplifying it. I think we try to make these big, fantastic recipes when we're starting something new. And I think it's just very, just simple. I'm going to have, that was something that keto taught me. Keto and carnivore was just being able to just have a piece of salmon. If that's all I want, I just eat a piece of salmon or a couple, you should probably eat more than one piece, but, just eating enough until you're full and being done with it is okay, and so when I have those days, I can go heat that up and that's it. So just keeping it simple is really key there.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We like to cook in the crock pot, and it's so easy to put, once you have a good cut of meat, you can just put it in the crock pot and and just put the broth over it, and it just makes a great meal, and it's so simple to do. Add a vegetable and you've got dinner,
That's it. That's it. Yep. I did that today.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, we made a bone broth. We got some short ribs, which can be a little bit expensive and they're kind of small, but I used some bone broth and some of those cognac noodles, miracle noodles, and just some seasoning and stuff in the short ribs. And it was just fantastic. And it was very simple. Threw it all in the crock pot. The house smelled amazing. And That's all you got to do.
Yep.
So
I love it. So it's not hard to do. So if you could sum up what you would recommend for our listeners, if they want to get started on the right path,
mhm.
what are the steps? If you could just give us an overview, what would you suggest they do in what order?
I always tell people first to just start. We have this habit of wanting to start on a particular day or after our birthday or on Monday is a common one. And I learned this the hard way. When I do that, I tend to put a lot of pressure on myself and on that day. And then something always comes up. There's like, that's the day that, you know, like you said, friends are like, hey, let's go to this restaurant you've been wanting to go to for the last 2 years, you know, that kind of thing. So I find that once I'm deciding in that moment, then it starts now. Just start making the change now. So that's the first thing I tell people to do when they ask me about that. You know, something else that I say is, like I was just saying, is keep it simple. Find something that works for you. You can make it more fancy later, but find something that works for you and start doing that. You know, that will help you to just jump in. If you try to plan too much, then you will just get lost in the details. So doing that, you know, I think also getting familiar with how you want your life to look. I think we sometimes also, people, we want advice. We want somebody to say, exercise this much and eat this much and eat this and not that. But I think you have to figure out what you like and what your goals are and modify it for that. So a lot of times the foods that you think might be taboo really aren't so taboo. And so things that you like to eat, find a way to have them, but in a healthier way or that fits your lifestyle. And that's been, you know, even though keto gets a bad rap, that's been a big point for a lot of people that have done the lifestyle, because they find that they're able to eat things that they enjoy and still be healthy, improve their metabolic health. So those are the three main ones I would say. There's a lot of them, but you know, I'd also say movement, and not exercise, but movement. You know, a lot of times we think about, you know, I got to get on the, like we talked about, I got to get on the Peloton, I got to do, you know, just move. So it might be, for me, some days it's just forcing myself. I'm going to work for these 45 minutes and then I'm going to get up for 10 minutes and move around. That takes you so far. You know, you can always, you know, if you do work from home like I do, you can always buy a walking pad or something that you can move your legs under the desk. But I mean, otherwise, just get up and do that. That's a good time if you're able to take breaks. That's a good time to do some laundry. That's a good time to go out and walk a little bit. You don't have to walk 10 miles like we were talking about, but just moving throughout the day is so much better for you than just that one exercise. Because what we do is we'll do that big, heavy exercise. And then it's like your brain is like, oh, well, I did all that this morning, I can just sit the rest of the day. And your body literally does that to balance it out. It's like you're just more prone to sitting. So if you make it a habit to just get up, and we have gadgets, you know, the Apple Watch and things will tell you to do that. But yeah, I mean, just getting up and moving around is key. People are actually healthier when they do that. So
we were driving. My grandson just graduated from Marine boot camp down at Paris Island, and so we drove from Columbus, Ohio, down to Paris Island in the Savannah area. And as we were driving, my car has a thing, I didn't even know it was on there. All of a sudden, it popped up on the dash, and it said, "It's time for a coffee break."
Oh, that's good.
It popped up on the dash, and Mark is like, "Your car is telling me it's time for a coffee break." And I said, "That is so cool." And, you know, so I said, well, we need to pay attention to that. So we actually stopped and got out of the car, and, you know, because we've been driving for so long. And so, yeah, there's all kinds of helpful reminders there that it's time to move, move around. So add that movement. Yes, I love that.
Yeah. And that's important too, for medical reasons. Of course, my put on my doctor hat when I think of that. You know, it's easy to get, especially when you're inflamed, it's easy to get blood clots. And so getting up and moving around is very important. A lot of times you just want to push through. I'm a big long distance driver myself. At least I used to be. I don't like it so much anymore, but you have to get out and move around. I mean, I have an 8-year-old, so I'm forced to get out and move around because he wants to go to the little convenience stores and stuff. But it's good. It's good to get out and just kind of, you know, do something else. So yeah, but for medical reasons, it's very important to do that as well.
Yeah. And do something fun. I talk to a lot of my patients who don't really like to exercise, but they have like a little dance video that they like to do with their kids. was like,
Yep.
it's great. You're getting your movement and your quality family time all at once. So
Yep.
you like habit stacking. It's
Yep.
good. It's great.
Yeah,
Yep.
if you go
That's-
to a bounce park with your kids, let me tell you, any of that stuff, go out and throw a ball around. I mean,
Mhm.
it's simple. They love it, and you're getting your movement. You don't have to, go to
Mhm.
the gym. You just don't have to do that.
Yeah, I run a guest house, a bed and breakfast, and someone says, "Oh, I would never do that. Why don't you just pay somebody to manage that?" And I said, "You know what? I said, I only have 3 rooms, and when guests check out and I have other guests checking in, I can't go sit down and, and watch television for a couple of hours because I have to go flip those rooms and get them ready. And it does keep me active. So I'm taking laundry up and down the stairs. I'm making beds. And it's not a ton, but it's just enough that it keeps me very active. And so I said, no, I'm going to do it as long as I can do it.
Yeah.
Because it kind of
important.
forces me to stay active. So yes, I love that. And then we're avid hikers and bikers and ballroom dancers and all that. So yeah, we like being active. I don't sit long. I don't sit well for very long. So yeah, I love that. Rita, any last comments or questions? We're coming up on the top of the hour. This has been great conversation. I'm definitely gonna make sure that I have some of my clients that are struggling with some weight issues and health issues. I'm gonna send them the link when we're all finished here because great stuff.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on, Dr. Mila,
Yeah,
giving us your time to share with our audience, and just grateful that you came on.
Yeah,
so good to
thank
see
for
you.
having me. Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun. I can talk about this stuff all day.
Now, how can our listeners connect with you? Is there a better way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I still have my podcast. I got busy with life, and I stopped doing it last year for a while, but I do plan on bringing it back. It's called The Single Well. There's still a page for it on Instagram, so at The Single Well spelled out. It's on there, TheSinglewell. On Instagram is probably a good way. I check those inboxes and things regularly. It's on all of the major platforms. It's still out there because I'm determined I'm going to bring it back and start doing it again. I miss it a lot. And then also on Facebook, I'm Mila Marie, Milah space Marie. So, people will sometimes follow me there, and anything I'm doing will come up there as well. So,
okay.
Hey, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for being with us. And so with that, I think we're going to go for this evening. And if anyone has any questions, get in touch with me, Kathy Benner. I'm a passive income coach. You can find me at kathybenner.com. And we have Rita Brewer. And Rita, just briefly tell us what you do and how folks can connect with you.
Yeah, I am a physician assistant for 32 years, converted to a private health coach because I want to focus on all these healthy lifestyle changes in food as medicine. So I have one-on-one coaching program. I specialize in obesity and type 2 diabetes reversal. It's my favorite thing to do. And I do have some free webinars coming up. So if that's about my diabetes reversal formula. So if you would like to join my free webinar, just come on over to my website, ritabrewer.com. You could reach out to me there and subscribe to my newsletter, and you will get all the notifications about when those webinars are coming up, or book a free call with me there as well. And love to connect with you, ritabrewer.com.
Perfect. Okay, with that, we are going to stop recording, and I appreciate you being with us this evening. And thank you so much.
Thank you.